It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Got it up and went, and you're left with the lead. I mean, it's I thought he did a really good job. Wasn't as sharp as I've seen him, but, under the circumstances and everything, you need a guy to go out and we needed somebody to go 6 innings, and he did. And he left with the lead, so it's good. We put together one good inning, and, they walked a couple people and got a couple of hits and hit a batter or two. And, we felt like we left a couple runs out there, but it ended up holding up. So on our side, I thought, Lane gave us another quality start, 6 pretty good innings, and got out of a jam or two. Losky came in and kind of bridged it, and then Matt finished it up.
Watching them on TV, I think we have a unique appreciation for what they really are. We played them 7 times, 6 times in their ballpark in front of their crowd in that stadium. So we have a great appreciation for what they are. To me, it was great, though, because that shows what it does take to be one of the best teams. And they win tonight. They're the best team in America. So we gave them half their home losses. So I think that shows that we were pretty darn good, too.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Wednesday hump day afternoon from downtown Columbia, the capital city. Your 2 favorite hours of the day about to unfold. Phil Kornblut, the Professor Tom Hayes with you. Will Pelagic off for the rest of the week, sunning his buns, and they are in need of some sun, from what I've been told, down at Hilton Head. 800-956-7266. Love to have your inputs on the program tonight. We can pick up on subjects we've already kicked around this week and add some new stuff to the menu. Always love to hear from you over the phones, through Twitter sometimes, not always through Twitter, because, let's face it, a lot of you are just not nice on Twitter. Email, talkback@sportstalksc.com. We've got some email we can get to as well. Busy show for you tonight. Ryan Holinsky will join us tonight. He's now in Atlanta for that silly little Rivals Combine Challenge, make us some money and we'll give you some stars sort of thing. We'll hear from him, not so much about that, but, the big story with him, his late brother, which around here and really around the country, if you follow college football, you know all about it. But it went national again this week with Sports Illustrated and the Today Show. And so we'll talk with him about some things related to that, but also about his preparation for his senior season. Remember, the guy's got another year of high school. Gamecock fans are acting like this guy's going to walk through the locker room door and help the Gamecocks this year. He still has another season of high school football. Then in January, he'll be in Columbia. Braves lose today to close out a homestand. They lose to the Reds, blow a lead, 6-5. We'll have some post-game comments from manager Brian Snitker. And Mark Kingston, we've already had him on Sports Talk to wrap up the season, but he met with the general media today to wrap up the season again. We'll bring you some of that. You heard his comments about Arkansas as Arkansas goes for its first baseball national championship tonight against Oregon State at the College World Series. One thing of major interest, I think, that Kingston had to share with us today is that L.T. Tolbert will sign with the Diamondbacks. 13th round pick. Hasn't done so yet, but there's no doubt, no question that he will sign. Maybe some were hoping that he might not sign and come back, but no, his deal is he's going to sign. So that's another regular from this past season who will be leaving the Gamecock program. 800-956-7266 is the phone number here on Sports Talk if you'd like to join in. Professor Tom Hayes alongside as well. We'll have a full recruiting report for you tonight as well, as we'll update a number of things for you too. But looking forward to having Ryan Holinsky on the program once again. If you have followed him on Twitter, he is he loves to tweet, no doubt about it, both about his family and about the Gamecocks and things going on with him. But this is a whole nother difficult story to write about and talk about. But he and his family have been very upfront about their opinion on this and trying to help others who might have to face the same situation.
The family, let's face it, Phil, you don't totally recover from something like this, but that's part of their recovery. they got to help somebody or for the next person that may have a child that's in danger. And they probably are running a tape recorder trying to say, where did we see anything that we let go by or whatever? You never know. You keep second guessing yourself. And I think part of that therapy is to try to help other people who may run into a problem. Hopefully not, but they will have all the information they need.
Well, and the conversation we had last night about the brain situation, the injuries, the long-term effects, the impact that constant knocking on the head can have on you, and does that lead to suicide? And football players who have been committing suicide, they do the autopsies, they donate their brains to science, and they see the damage and the disease that progresses through, and they think that has something to do with it. I don't know. I don't think there's anything that you can draw an absolute conclusion about there, except to say that perhaps it's a contributing factor. Yeah. But other factors can contribute as well, as we all know. So I don't think anybody has reached the point where they're ready to say this is an absolute cause of this, that, or the other. So we'll have Ryan with us here at the bottom of the hour. We'll hear from Mark Kingston, also from Brian Snitker, and recruiting here on a very busy Wednesday night of Sports Talk. I know you're busy out there in the afternoon heat and humidity. Maybe you're out for a jog, a walk, getting in a quick 18 or a quick 9. Maybe you're just lounging in the chair in the backyard, sipping a cold one. Feel free to join in. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Question in on email from Mary, who is asking if Josiah Seitler he's from where? Swansea? Is that right? He's from he's the USC baseball signee. I want to say he's from not far outside of Columbia. He was drafted, and the question she's asking is he coming to South Carolina? He was a 12th round pick of the Reds, left-handed pitcher. Well, one thing that Kingston said today, he had 7 signees drafted. He said 3 are going to the pros. I guess they've already signed. And he said 3 of the other 4 are coming in. And that would include Seitler, because Seitler hadn't signed yet. So he's saying that Owen White, of course, who's already signed, will not be coming in. Taj Bradley, who's already signed, will not be coming in. And Blaze Alexander, who's already signed, will not be coming in. Those are the 3 that he is saying. So he did not single out Seitler, and nobody followed up with a question about it. But apparently in his mind right now, he's expecting the young man to be in school, which apparently, considering his draft status and his reputation, that'd be a big pickup for the Gamecocks from the left side.
Anytime you can pick up a guy who's left-handed. What was the old adage? You have a baby boy, make sure when you look in the crib, take the ball and stick it in his left hand. Mm-hmm. So anytime you can grab a left-hander, that's all to the good. But it also proves to you how it's still a difficult call now, especially for pitchers, because I think because of the way they've dealt with the bats and whatever, you don't mind maybe applying your craft early on at the college ranks. And we're seeing more and more pitchers do that. I know the prize pitchers still 90% of the time may go, but some of those guys decided they'd rather pitch in college and have the college experience while they're developing their craft.
800-956-7266 is their number. The Braves lost today to Cincinnati, as we mentioned, at home. Braves scored 4 runs in the 4th to take a 4-2 lead. The teams exchanged runs in the 5th, and then in the 7th, it all came unglued. Sean Newcomb pitched 6 innings and left with the lead. He left with the Braves up 5-3, and Sam Freeman came in, didn't really have good stuff today in the 7th inning, and got hit around. 3 runs for the Reds with 2 outs on 4 consecutive singles, changed the complexion of the game, and the Reds went on to win by a final of 6-5, 6-11-1. Reds are all of a sudden playing some pretty good baseball.
Yeah, Jim Riggleman proves that he's still a solid manager. I know he's getting long in the tooth, but the Reds need to hold on to him.
Braves have some injury issues. Inciarte had to leave today's game. And the little guy was out as well after taking a
Ozzy Albies.
Yeah, took a shot off the foot last night, and he set out today's game. Okay, we'll be right back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Wednesday night. Good to have you with us. 800-956-7266. Of course, Sports Talk is the most listened to, most talked about, most discussed, most dissected sports talk show in South Carolina. And when I'm talking, it's the most handsome. If you could put a face on a show and call it handsome, it would be this face right here. No question about it.
Now, remember, the Twitter feed won't lie.
800-956-7266. So Arkansas, 4-1 winner last night over Oregon State. If I had told you going into the College World Series that Oregon State's Luke Heimlich would start 3 games and not make it past the 4th inning in any of those outings, what would you have said?
Yeah, I would have been in shock.
Well, I think we are in shock. I mean, he's been I wonder how this really, besides his already off-the-field reputation being damaged, I wonder how these 3 outings at the highest level of college baseball, with everybody watching, the pro scouts watching, I wonder how that impacts the thinking of any general manager who might consider signing him as a free agent.
He still has good stuff. And as I said before, being the Braves fan that I am, I've seen this before. As I said before, there are some pitchers that because during a season you see different arm slots, this sort of thing, and they're very effective because they're good at spotting the baseball and changing speeds. For instance, John Smoltz threw hard, very hard. He was great in the postseason. Greg Maddux had to be an artist, and he usually was the one pitcher the Braves had who got tagged in the playoffs because he had to be so fine that if he was just a little bit off and guys concentrate on you because they're doing their homework a little bit better because they can focus on you, then they get tagged. Heimlich reminds me of Greg Maddux. He doesn't throw hard. Mm-hmm. He has to spot pitches. And when he doesn't have his best stuff or he's missing and he's got a groove on, he gets tattooed.
4-1, the final score last night. Arkansas wins it. Arkansas's never won the baseball national championship. They'll try and get that done tonight and try and avoid going to a decisive 3rd game. Arkansas scored all 4 runs in the 5th inning, 2 singles, a walk, a hit by pitch, an error. And that knocked out Heimlich after 4 1/3. Blaine Knight earned the victory, 6 innings of 1-run ball. So he finishes his year at 14-0, the only D1 pitcher in the nation with at least 10 wins and 0 losses. Now, today, Mark Kingston met with the media in Columbia to give his recap of the Gamecock season. Of course, they played Arkansas to the wire out there, both in the regular season and in the Super Regional. Here are some of what some comments from Kingston, some of what he had to say. We'll break this down into a couple of pieces for you. So this opening part is Mark just jumping in and giving his opening thoughts about his first year in Columbia.
We'll look back finally on this season, I think, in terms of knowing we maximized that team and saw a lot of great things. Obviously, coming within 1 game of Omaha was something that I think very few people predicted when the season started. Setting a school record for draft picks, I think, is something very few people saw coming. So I just think all in all, it was a very successful season and one we want to build on now.
Marco, you did get some good news out of the draft when an Olsen and a Hopkins and a Cullen, those guys didn't get picked, so they'll be back. Is that what you look at as the foundation of next year's team, those guys that have been here?
Yeah, the veterans, I think you always start when you look at every team, you always start with the veterans and who's coming back, who will help be able to carry that baton forward to show and be examples for the new group. So I think that's a pretty good group that you named that we'll start with that.
Logan and Carmen, what do they need to work on this summer? I assume you pretty much counting on them to probably be starters next year? What do they need to do to take that next step?
I think strength and conditioning will be a big part of that. Both of them can get much stronger. And as players get bigger and stronger, they get better. So to me, I think as they put on good weight, become stronger athletes, I think you'll see that benefits them in a variety of ways. I think it'll help their fastball. It will help their command. It'll help the breaking balls. I think everything. I just think you'll see guys next year that are bigger and stronger, and because of that, they're better.
Recruiting class that you had a full hand in kind of bringing guys in. Just what stands out about the guys that are coming in now, or the ones that are on campus, and how do you feel like they're going to be able to help the team? Yeah,
recruiting in baseball is still very unique. A lot of it is still done 2 and 3 years ahead of time. So a lot of the guys coming in are still players that we will be inheriting from the previous staff. We were able to add some mostly JUCO guys. We had a couple high school guys along the way. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of, you want your new players to come in and blend with the returning players. And so I think our recruiting classes, as we continue to move forward into the future, and the 20 class, the 21 class will be really where we start to have a full handprint, thumbprint on the impact of that class. I think you're just going to see a lot of the same things you saw with our team as we started to evolve. We want athletic players. We want speed. We want power. We want pitchers that have good stuff, but also have good command. That's what we'll continue to try to fill this program with.
Marco Lawson and Rich Chapman were each drafted, but they've each said that they're coming back. First, are they healthy? And two, what steps do they need to take to be as good as they were this year?
Yeah, they're both guys that are nursing some things health-wise that I think, we just have to continue to evaluate. So obviously we hope both of them will be able to help us next year. As they get better, once again, I think just they need to continue to hone their craft. Both of them have really good stuff, but need to make sure that consistency of command of their breaking balls continues to improve. When they do that, when they're at the top of their game, they're both really, really good. They just need to be there more often.
Mark, what is TJ's plan for this summer, and just, I guess, how important is he to next year?
Yeah, TJ is going to spend a lot of time with Brainerd, our trainer, and also with Billy in our weight room. So to him, the biggest thing is, I think his game had evolved to a point where he was becoming a very good baseball player. Now we just need to make sure that he's spending a ton of time with the athletic trainers and with our strength trainers to give him his best chance for health moving forward.
Mark Kingston, more from the Gamecock coach, coming up a little bit later on in the program. So with Tolbert definitely departing, you're really looking at a complete makeover, third base, shortstop, second base, first base, catcher. Every position basically will be manned by a new person. Cullen could handle catcher or first base, depending on what direction he moves in the offseason. But everything else in the infield will be brand new. Now, Jacob Olson could end up playing an infield position. Noah Campbell could end up playing an infield position. So you'll have some guys who've been playing, but just not playing in the infield. It's going to be very interesting to watch them put this team together in the fall and again next spring. You would hope that the incoming guys will be good enough to pick up from where the outgoing guys left it, because they had it moving in a good direction.
Well, the key thing here for South Carolina, whenever South Carolina has really been, they've had a solid defense. And we saw the defense they played down the stretch is what got them as far as it did, with some good young pitching and some timely hitting. But I think it's tantamount for them when they put this infield together. They got to watch that defense. That defense has to remain solid for them. Don't have to say anything about just cracking the door open for Arkansas last night. Was one of the rare errors that you see the Beavers make. And then that opened the door. The errors can cost you at any level, but especially at the college level.
And speaking of baseball and former stars, how about Seth Beer? Not wasting any time taking that next step up the ladder. 11 games into his pro career, he gets a promotion from the short season A ball in the Astros organization to Class A Quad Cities. He's hitting .293 in 41 at-bats, a .659 slugging percentage, a .431 on-base percentage, 4 homers, and 7 RBIs thus far in his career. All right, we'll hit a break here at the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we will hook up, if all goes well, with future USC quarterback Ryan Helinski. You know his story. We'll talk about it when we come back. We continue with Sports Talk on a Wednesday night from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Professor Tom Hayes. Will Pelagic has the rest of the week off. 800-956-7266, the number. You can reach out and touch us a little bit later on. More from Mark Kingston later. Brian Snitker, the Braves manager, will talk about the loss today. But right now, we welcome back into Sports Talk Ryan Helinski, quarterback from out in California, who eventually will get to South Carolina. I have to remind everybody, Ryan, you still have another year of high school to play before you can become a Gamecock. But it's good to have you with us once again. How are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing good. I'm out in Atlanta for the Rivals 5-Star Challenge, and I'm just with a couple of guys that hoping to join me on board for this 19 class, but I'm doing good. How are you doing?
We're doing great, and we appreciate you taking time to be with us. And the subject
Absolutely.
of your brother, of course, a national subject this week with your parents' appearance on the Today Show and the story in Sports Illustrated. And so we thought we'd reach out to you since we do know you, and you are now a part of the state of South Carolina. How did this come about in terms of the article on Sports Illustrated? How did they approach the family, and how did they put that together?
Yeah, well, they called me a while back, actually, and asked me if I'd be open to, and if my parents would be open to doing a story. And this is like probably, I think like a month ago, and they started shooting everything. And I said I was more than happy to, do a story like that, because the more, media that you get, the more exposure that mental awareness gets. So it's pretty amazing what they did for that article and that video.
Is it difficult for you and the family to talk about the subject?
Honestly, not really. I think just because we get more media out of it, and everything's just great because it just brings more mental awareness for everybody in the program and everything that's going on.
When you get together at these gatherings with football players, what's the reaction that they have to you, knowing you as a football player, but also knowing what's going on in the background with your family?
Yeah, I think just talking to them and being one of the guys, I mean, it's pretty hard, of course, to lose a brother, but just getting back on the circuit, I think a lot of them have respect for me. Just seeing, how much I've grinded since then. A week after Tyler had passed, I got back on the circuit, and I won a couple MVPs at a couple different camps. So I think they just have respect and respect me as a leader and as a person with great work ethic.
So in the meetings with the media and everything that you and the family are doing, what's the general message that you guys are trying to present to the public?
It's more prevalent that, that people see out in the world today. We just want people to be aware of mental awareness, because people don't think, it's not a big deal. But like 90% of kids in the world today have it. And we just want to make people aware of what's going on in the world today and in college football.
Of course, the subject that came out of the interview, and it's the subject that's talked about quite a bit, of course, is the long-term impact of football on a player's health, CTE.
Mm-hmm.
Your family disclosed that your brother was discovered to have that, and people are tying that into suicides and mental issues and things of that nature down the road. Yet there doesn't seem to be any hesitancy on their part or your part to continue with your football career.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of people, tell me to stop, and they say, you're going to be subject to that in the future, and it's going to hurt you. But I don't think Tyler would want me to quit. I think he'd want me to keep going and be, that light in people's lives that, he sees, when people hit adversity in their lives, like myself and my family, they don't quit. They go after something that they love, and I love football, and I can't wait to play for South Carolina. And I think just Coach Muschamp and Coach Werner are there to support me in any way that they can. And Coach Dillman's doing great things with the mental support program for the weight room and those aspects of life. And I think I'm in a good spot with them. And I've got a great support system with my parents and my oldest brother, Kelly, as well. Do you know if you've ever suffered a concussion from football? I mean, sometimes obviously if you've had one, but sometimes you can go and get hit in the head and not realize it. Have you ever suffered a concussion? Yeah, I've suffered actually a couple in my time. I've gotten a couple, not crazy concussions, but I've gotten hit and I've got taken out of games for about a week, and I've had to just deal with that and the symptoms of it. But nothing's really changed in my life or my thinking ways, that's made me think, okay, something's wrong. I feel fine, and concussions are just part of the game, and you got to live with it.
Now, you're on the field, and obviously you look up to any older brother. And I'm not going to ask you I'm going to ask you how many times during the game that you hear Tyler telling you, why did you do that? Why did you do this? I've done it so many times. And we've done it back and forth to each other. I mean, he tells me, he's like, why'd you make that throw? Or I'll tell him,
why'd you scramble on this? And I mean, that's what brothers do. You know, we want each other to be perfect in their aspects of life so we can get the best opportunities we can at the next level. And I think we learn from each other. Being that he was at the college level, I've learned a lot from him, and he's learned a lot from me. And we always helped each other out in any way that we could.
When you get to Columbia and become part of the Gamecock program, along with school and trying to become the best football player you can be, how active do you want to be in the community, in the state, in dealing with this particular issue?
Yeah, I mean, I've already talked to a bunch of people that own restaurant chains, companies out in Columbia, and they want to support Holistic Hope as fast as they can. I think when I get there, I want everybody to be aware of the situation, and I want people to know that they're not alone when going through these things. And I think I've talked to numerous coaches, and they're already wearing Holinski Hope bands. I remember when I threw for Coach Muschamp and Warner, they were wearing their Holinski Hope wristbands, which is pretty amazing. And I know a lot of people have already reached out to me over Twitter with pictures of the Holinski Hope bands and Holinski Hope T-shirts. And I could already tell that they're going to be super supportive when I get there. And I want it to be a big deal. And I want to make people aware of the illness of mental, the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one of the things I think people would ask you is, do you and your parents sort of sit down and sometimes during quiet time just talk about, did we see anything or change in your brother that would have detected that there was a budding problem? And do you get questions about that when you're speaking to groups about how you can detect whether there's a change in behavior in someone that plays football?
Yeah, I mean, we could tell. We couldn't tell that he was to the point of suicidal thoughts, but we could tell that his mind had changed a little bit. He got a little bit sad than he was, but he was still the same happy kid. I mean, after games, like I remember after the Boise State game, he was on top of the world, on top of people's shoulders when he played. But then after the Arizona game, he threw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, but he also threw 4 interceptions. He was very upset, and we could tell. But he was happy the next day, and I think he just got to that point where CTE took over, and just thought that he couldn't get out of his mind. And I think he just wasn't happy, and he wanted to be happy again. And I think when people ask us like if they can detect that, we just try and tell them to sit down and have actual conversations with their child, with someone that they love, that they see going through these things, because we never sat down and seriously talked to him about it. He just went through his regular day life, and we just let it happen. And in the end, we let him down. That's what me and my dad came to the conclusion on, and we should have noticed it earlier. But I think he's in a better place now, and we're just glad he's happy.
Does the family hold Washington State accountable for any of this?
Say it one more time. Sorry.
Does the family hold Washington State accountable for anything that happened with your brother?
No, they were great. All those people were Coach Leach. Everybody around him on the team loved Tyler. None of them, bullied him or did anything like that. They wanted him to be their quarterback next year when he was going to, and they wanted to be the quarterback the year he played. And they were great through this whole process. I mean, Washington weather could have been something to do with it. But everybody at Washington State has been great throughout that whole process and before he even committed the act.
Can we ask you to hold on for a couple of more minutes so we can talk some football with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. We'll be back to you in just a moment. Got a 4-minute break.
Sounds
so if
good.
you want to put the phone down and rest your ear and rest your lips and all that kind of stuff, we'll come back to you in just a moment, visiting with Ryan Hilinski, who, my goodness, is he mature beyond his years, and a guy that's handling a lot of pressure, both in terms of the family and his own career, and doing a great job. We'll continue with him in a moment.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Ryan Helinski, our guest on Sports Talk from California, but right now over in Atlanta for a Rivals get-together combine. There, you know, I am not a big star rating guy or camp combine guy. You know, I'm just a guy that observes recruiting and talks about where kids are getting offers and going. But that's all well and good. But what I wanted to ask you, because you're big in all that kind of stuff, and you go to a lot of these things. What can you get? What do you think you take away from these kind of events, these combines, and the Elite 11 that you'll be going to as well?
Yeah, I mean, they're prestigious events, of course. You know, these kids go through a lot of hard work to get these kids here. But the one thing, I don't come here for rankings. I don't come here for stars. I mean, that's all well and good. I just come here to compete and prove that I'm the best in the country. You know, a lot of people look at me and they say, you know, he's a kid. Yeah, he's good, but he's not the best in the country. He's second best. And I came here to Atlanta, and I'm going to the Elite 11 for one thing and one thing only, and that's to win the competition and just prove that I'm one of the best in the country. I like the SARS and all that fun stuff. And it's whatever, but my main thing to look at when I come to these things is competition and to win and do a little bit of recruiting if I can at these things.
Do you think you're the best quarterback in your class in the country?
I would never ever say that because I'm humble, but I'm definitely going to compete my butt off to make sure that I'm considered one of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, I noticed when quarterbacks are trying out for NFL scouts and they have their private workout, they love to have their favorite receivers with them to throw to.
Yeah.
When you go to these events like here, is it helpful to get used to throwing to someone that you're not used to and have to judge on the fly where they like the ball and the speed of which the throw has to be there to get it to them?
Yeah, I think that's what one of the things everybody's judging, you know, to see how well you can adapt to new different speeds. Because some kids at their respective high schools, you know, they got that one guy, but the rest is maybe a fall off group. And I know I've got Kyle Ford, but he's not here with me at this event. There's a lot of great receivers here that I've got to throw to and adjust their speed and how they want stuff, which is one of the things that everybody looks at. So it's definitely a challenge when you first get out there, but once you get moving and your arm gets ready, it just falls right into place. You'll get moving on with the day. What
things are you working on in your game this summer to get you ready for your senior season?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to being a successful quarterback, and that's what I'm doing mostly right now, is being consistent. A lot of the things, I make good throws, and maybe every fifth throw or sixth throw is not so good. So I just got to make sure I'm consistent 100% of the time. I'm just one of those guys that coach can rely on every single down of the game. And I'm working to become a little bit of out of movement passer. Last year I was more of a pocket guy, stay in the pocket, but I could run if I need to. But I know coach this year will pocket a little bit more, show my versatility. And I think I'm ready to do that. And I've got a lot faster, worked on my agility, and I've slimmed down a little bit. I'm up to 8% body fat. So everything's going good in my direction. I'm just making sure I'm the best I can be for my senior season.
How much are you in touch with Will Muschamp and Dan Werner?
Probably every day, or actually, yes, every day. I coach Muschamp, me and my father and my mother every day before we wake up. We're in a group chat with him, and he sends me an edit or sends me a quote, that just try and motivates me and get me through the day. And he tells my parents that South Carolina is a great place, and they made the right judgment every day, and he's just proud to have me a part of the team. And Coach Werner and I, we talk about ball, but he always likes to hear about what's going on in my regular life. He talked about yesterday the Sports Illustrated article, video, when my parents were on the Today Show. I talked to him a lot. I just talked to Coach BMAC today because I took a picture with Keon Mullen, who we're trying to get on board, and this is a big weekend for him, I'm pretty sure. They've been great when talking, and that was a big decision when making the choice to pick South Carolina, was because I had such great relationships with them.
Have other recruiters from other schools now backed off you?
They're still on the hunt. They try and text me, every other day. I usually don't respond. I leave it read. I usually don't respond just because I'm committed to South Carolina, and I told people I'm 110%. And I think the coaches, Coach Muschamp, Coach Warner, have honored that commitment as well. And they're really good in that aspect, and I think I'm really happy where I am. They can try all they want, but it would take a whole lot to get me to flip.
All right. So I know you're active in recruiting. I don't know what you want to share with us. Whatever you do want to share with us will be fine. But what do you want to share with us from your conversations with some of the your buddies there that the Gamecocks are involved with that you're helping? Where do they stand with some guys?
Yeah. I mean, we got Kevion Mullins here, who's a wide receiver. He worked out with Coach B-Mac, I remember, a couple weeks ago. And he's a beast. I mean, he's about the same size as me, and he's built. And he's making his decision, I believe, at the 5-star challenge either today, tomorrow, or the day we all leave. And I think we're in a pretty good spot with him. I took a picture with him, posted it to Twitter about 20 minutes ago, and I think we're in a good spot with him. I know there's another DB here, Cameron Stevens, I believe his name is, that I watched him compete at the 7-on-7 tournament in South Carolina when I was there, and he's a beast DB, really great kid too. And then when we go to the opening next week, I know Chris Steele is on my team, and so is Kevin Deloach. And I know we want to get those guys on our team, and I've talked to them, and they're excited to talk to me when I get there. And I know Chris is announcing his college commitment 3 days after the opening conclusion. So I'll be the last one to talk to him before he commits, which is a pretty good thing, and I'm pretty excited about that. But I know we're in a pretty good spot with a lot of guys, and I'm pretty excited to maybe meet some more future Gamecocks this upcoming week.
All right. Now, you know, the Southern Cal rival site writer tweeted yesterday that Steele, according to sources, committed out there. What do you think?
Well, I text Chris because we have a good relationship. I text Chris. I said, Chris, like, you wouldn't tell me before you committed, right? And he's like, dude, that's fake news. I didn't commit anywhere yet. But Chris made sure that he told me, and he told the Coach Muschamp and Coach T-Rob that he hadn't committed anywhere yet. And I knew he wouldn't do that. He'd let me know beforehand. And that's just one of those guys that, you know, wants to get views on his site and all that fun stuff and just ruin a kid's moment. But Chris is just not that kid. And he told me, hey, he hasn't committed anywhere yet. And we're still in the hunt. So I'm going to go after him until he does commit.
How about your teammate? You mentioned the receiver Ford. I know USC, the Gamecocks, offered him a while back. Is there any action there?
There is a little bit. Chris actually reached out to Kyle and said, hey, you got to visit South Carolina, because once you visit, I think you'll pretty much like it. And Kyle's one of those guys that, you know, likes the West Coast, and he doesn't know, you know, what the South has to offer yet. I know when I made those SEC trips to South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and I saw what football is all about down in the South, I think it'll change his mind. So once we get him to visit, I think it'll change his mind, and we're still planning that, but I think we can get a visit out of him.
Hey, listen, we're going to let you go. Good luck in the competition there, the Elite 11, and best of luck to you and your family with everything else that you're doing. Everybody across America certainly supports you guys. And, of course, you know, you got your new family here in South Carolina. Thank you for being with us, and we'll talk to you again soon.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Spurs up.
Ryan Hilinski, future Gamecock quarterback, and carrying a huge message in everything that he does, you know, to remember his brother and to maybe help other people out there. What else can you do in life?
Sounds like he's a recruiting coordinator in a uniform. That's what it sounds like.
Well, I mean, listen, that's the beautiful thing about getting a top flight quarterback committed early, especially one as charismatic as this guy. I mean, I'm telling you, he's got Todd Ellis charisma written all over him. You remember when Todd came out of high school, he was a grown man mentally in terms of dealing with the media, answering questions and all that kind of stuff, way above his years. Same thing with this young man. He just sounds very mature, humble, but very comfortable in his own skin.
Boy, high school is going to get boring when he has to go back. I mean, all the things he's gone through just this summer. I mean,
he'll just go ahead and reclassify and come on in now. Now he probably wants to try and win another championship out there in California. All right, we'll hit the recruiting notes after the break. Got more from Mark Kingston coming up, and maybe some of your phone calls too. We'll be back.
2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Bill Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Thanks again to Ryan Holinsky for joining us. He was on the bus headed out to playing some games tonight in Atlanta. So we're glad that he was able to join us. Coming up, the start of Game 2 of the CWS Championship Series could be the end of the road for this college athletics season. The last event for this academic year will either be tonight or tomorrow night, barring rain issues. And finally, we draw this year to a close. And a big crowd, full house, will be on hand in Omaha. Weather looks good, and Arkansas going for the national championship. As you think back on this academic/athletic year, now that it's going to be over, not just here in the state, but nationally, what jumps out at you? What do you remember the most? All over the country.
Wow.
I know we're dominated by football, of course, memories there, but what stands out the most to you? You know, well, you go ahead, then I'll chime in. I'm trying not to let the local teams influence me here.
Yeah. What stands out to me just off the top of my head, the proof of having to learn when it's winning time. And everybody talks about Alabama's talent, but it's not Alabama's talent. It's that guy with the headset on. Because what idiot would have thought, okay, it's second and so on, so let's just go for the touchdown. Because they're going to be relaxed. The safeties think we're going to do this. We're going to let a guy run right by the guy. I mean, the fake punt when he felt it was necessary against Clemson, when he felt the game getting away. Just the knack of knowing when it's time to win and when you feel that the game may be getting away from you. That's where Nick Saban's valuable.
That's
you
an
have all
excellent
the all the talent you want,
Yeah.
but if you don't know when it's winning time, you're not going to win anyway.
That's an excellent point. I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking, I don't want to be too provincial. I don't want to be too much of a homie. I can't get out of my head. This is from my hometown team, watching Latta play Chesney in the state championship baseball game, and the young man who was on the mound in the 7th inning trying to save the game for Latta, getting the first out, then coming off the mound and starting to throw up on the field.
Goodness.
And they stopped the game. And I mean, this was some serious puking. And he went back on the mound and got the last 2 outs. I mean, that's to me kind of the signature of what sports is all about, man. Fighting through it, grinding, as the young people like to say today, getting back up on that hump and getting the last 2 outs, though you probably don't feel real good. A lot of memories from this athletic year that comes to a close now for the college sports. And we get ready. We get a little bit of a respite here at the end of June. Well, a little bit. We get about 2 weeks, and then we're into SEC and ACC media days in the middle of July. And, of course, the other leagues will have their media days, the Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12. They'll all have their various media days and various stories that will come out of that. I wonder if we'll have – now, see, the ACC's deal is pretty low-key. It's in Charlotte this year. Typically, or in the past, they've had a lot of times out at a golf resort. Now they've gone uptown. They've gone to, I think it's at the Westin in downtown Charlotte this year. So maybe a tad bit more formal, but not. I mean, they're not going to be dressed in coat and tie. The SEC is so industrialized. I actually had a long time, you know, we're still with South Carolina being relatively new to the SEC. We as media that cover South Carolina, we're relatively new to the SEC. Of course, I've been around SEC media days long enough to see it mushroom from a small gathering to what it is now, a monster gathering. Maybe, you know, too much. But a longtime SEC guy from down in Alabama, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, man, I I dread going to SEC media days now. He says, I don't want to go. In fact, he said, I tried to talk my station out of going, but they've got so many thousands of dollars in sponsorships he has to go. And I said, why? He goes, because it's ESPN's bag, the SEC and ESPN. It's all about that. And the rest of the media is basically thrown a bone and just sort of allowed into the party, but just stay out of the way. And it's true. Now, can reporters from various newspapers and non-ESPN websites, get coaches and players and executives up to the side and do some stories on them? Certainly you can. Mm-hmm. But it is truly an SEC, ESPN dominated event with their live shows and their exclusive interviews. And it rubs some people the wrong way. Me, I don't really care. We go there, strictly. Well, we're there for the whole deal, but our focus, of course, is on South Carolina, which won't show up until the last day. The Gamecocks don't go till Thursday. Am I right about that? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it's close to one of the last days. But
Steve Fink told me today they know who they're taking in terms of the players, but he wouldn't tell us because the SEC wants to put out a release. I got to believe Jake Bentley will be there. I got to believe Jake Bentley. Debo went last year. I could see him going back. Last year it was Debo and Hayden Hurst and and Sky Moore.
Yeah.
Those are the three they had last year. This year, I could see Bentley. I could see Debo going again, or maybe Brian Edwards, and then a defensive guy.
BAW.
Bryson Allen Williams.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense. So that's coming up. We'll be there, of course, all 4 days of that. Also, that same week on that Tuesday, Dabo Sweeney's got his media golf outing up in the mountains, up at the reserve at Lake Kiowee, which is a great, great place. We were just there last week. Will be there for that, and then he will sashay down to Charlotte and cover the ACC Media Days on Wednesday and Thursday.
I was just thinking, what are we talking about, 18, 20 years ago? If they'd have had Media Days in Atlanta, Philip Fulmer wouldn't have had to worry about going in the state of Alabama and getting the summons.
One of the greatest moments of all time. Truly one of the greatest moments of all time. I remember like it was yesterday, his car pulling up to the Winfrey Hotel, and waiting for him was, I don't know, some attorney, I guess, from the state of Alabama or from the client, whoever he was representing, ready to serve him some papers. And he wouldn't get out of the car at first. In fact, I think he took off and left. That was a weird, I think it might have been the same year. Maybe it was a different year. The other very strange occurrence was the year South Carolina didn't show up with Lou Holtz because they said they couldn't get out of Columbia to fly because of the weather. So they ended up putting Lou on a speakerphone. And you had camera people there shooting a speakerphone and recording the audio. It was so crazy. That resulted in the league coming up with a rule, and I think it's still in place today, that the teams have to come in the day before, to make sure they're there on time. So this will be a different experience having it in Atlanta after all those years in Hoover, Alabama. You get comfortable in Hoover. They had a nice setup at the Winfrey, which now has another name, but it's connected to the big mall there in Hoover, and they have a long hallway that was filled with the talk shows, with the sports talk shows called, Radio Hall, obviously, a long hallway that connected the hotel lobby to the Galleria Mall. And you would watch people go back and forth all day long up and down that hallway. And, they'd bring the coaches and players. Years ago, you'd get any coach, any player. Some of the coaches made it their mission to get on as many shows as possible.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you who was great at it was Tommy Tuberville. He would come in the day before just to get on shows that afternoon and that night and get the jump. And that was great. But I don't think, we don't do our shows because we're only a night show now. We don't have reason to have access down there on the floor during the daytime. But from what I hear, the guys aren't getting the interviews like they used to.
Somehow I still have that picture when you say Media Days is Sporia with the suit and the wraparound shades. That's I believe
people miss him. I wish he would just show up just to speak to the media. That would be too cool. We'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Founders Federal Credit Union is honoring our servicemen and women with Founders Military Mortgage. Apply online at foundersfcu.com/mortgage or at a Founders location where a qualified mortgage loan officer will help you through the application process. 956-7266 is our phone number. Email into us from Alan. Going back on our conversation of last night about CTE, he writes, I believe football is facing a tough future. The big question is, what is the actual risk? And we just do not have that answer. Everyone seems to be focused on the NFL, but these guys know some of the risks they are taking. I think the biggest changes will be at the high school and levels below. The risk is not known, but as more evidence comes out about CTE and younger players, then changes will have to be made. Lawyers and some parents will demand this, and school boards will not be able to ensure the sport. I believe you'll see touch football from the high school level down.
Well,
even more strict contact rules in college. The other question is, will the sport be as popular without the hard hits? I've loved watching football since I was a kid, but I wonder if I would allow my young kid to play. Difficult. It's from Alan, listening to us in Greenwood. Well, that's the problem. That's the issue that young parents who happen to love football, say you played football in college or NFL, whatever, or you're just a big fan, you love going to the games, and now you got your own family, you got a young boy who's going to grow up in 10 or 11 years and might be athletic, and you want him to play football. You think there are a lot of positive, redeeming values from playing football, but you also understand you're putting him at risk. Then again, anytime you get in your car, you're putting yourself at risk. So what are you going to do, live in a cocoon?
Well, I mean, you're at risk in any sport, quite frankly. I mean, as I said now, they put basketball players in concussion protocol. If you take a blow to the head, especially with an elbow, and there's no pad on those long, thick elbows some of those guys have. And, of course, baseball has always been sort of dangerous, just the ball itself and the bat.
Yeah, I never liked that ball coming at me at a high rate of speed.
I didn't either. In fact, I've been beamed once as a child, and that is no fun.
Well, that explains it then.
I didn't know the head could ring as loud as it could. No, I got hit in the chin, and that was very difficult. But my dad was see, here's my excuse to my dad. My dad hands, he had a size 12 ring. He was a third baseman. He could hit. And I just know him, told my dad, I said, Dad, my hand, I think it was like a 7.5 or 8 ring. I said, my hands were made for shooting the basketball. It wasn't made to vacuum up balls at third base, because he loved the game of baseball. He was, as I said before, I told people if the Super Bowl was on and a spring training game, he watched the spring training game. But his son picked up a basketball. Because my dad grew up in the 30s, and he said he got thrown out of a basketball practice because he threw a behind-the-back pass. He said, get out.
Yeah. Coach,
get out.
No time for that.
Get out.
Let me give you a couple of recruiting notes, both on the basketball side. 6'7" Christian Brown of Lower Richland has taken the official visit to UNLV. He did that back in early June. He is undecided about any future visits right now. Clemson and USC coaches, assistant coaches, remain in contact. He said LSU, Maryland, Florida, Georgia, Houston, and some others are keeping in touch. He has not decided if he will sign early or late. USC recently handed out an offer to another point guard who reclassified for 2019, Giovanni Santiago, who went to high school in Cincinnati but will play at Hargrave Prep, Virginia, this coming season. He said the Gamecocks, Coach Martin, watched him in the FIBA Americas tournament in Canada. You know, they were up there scouting A.J. Lawson, and they watched him. And so when he went to Hargrave, he said they called his brother. They set up an unofficial visit this past Saturday to USC because it's 4 hours from Hargrave. They drove down, and he really likes the staff. He likes the campus. And he said at the end of the day, they offered. And so he's very interested in South Carolina. In the tournament in Canada, he averaged over 12 points and 5 assists per game. And he said that Frank Martin likes his game and likes how he thinks he would fit into his system. They like his mental makeup, and they believe that he's a player. When he's on the court, he makes other players on the court better. So they like that in him. USC is his first big-time offer. He's also getting interest from FIU, UAB, North Texas, and others. He'll play AAU ball next month, so he's not set any future visits. And his plan at this point is not to sign until next April so he can play the full season at Hargrave before making a decision. But the offer does give the Gamecocks a head start on the field. Last season at Hughes High School in Cincinnati, Santiago averaged 15.7 assists and 4 rebounds per game. Boy, what's he going to do with all these guards? I mean, he's got a boatload full of guards coming in. He's already got a point guard committed for 2019 and Trey Hannibal. Guess you can't have enough good guards.
Can't have enough good guards. And some of the guards he has now, they could actually play out on the wing. They're big enough so you could conceivably have 3 guards in the game who all have the ability to play the point, which is what he did with his Final Four team.
And play defense.
Yes.
That's the key.
Well, you're not going to see the court if you don't play defense for Frank Martin.
All right, there you go with recruiting. Don't forget to check it out on our website, SportsTalkSC.com, every day, every night, 365 days a year, 366 during leap years. When's our next leap year? So I can have an extra day of recruiting coverage.
I have no earthly idea.
It's got to be coming up soon. And on Twitter, use the hashtag #STRecruiting to take you right to all our notes and stories and things that we retweet from others. By the way, just reading some of the stuff coming out of the media day at the little Rivals gathering in Atlanta. Nothing I read is considered news breaking or anything like that. I saw a couple of stories with some USC and Clemson targets. Nobody's saying anything of major importance right now. I don't think Ryan is up to date unless Mullins has told him something else. You know, Mullins is now planning to wait until after at least the dead period ends so he can visit USC again with some of his family and give them a look at the campus before he makes his decision, primarily with USC and Memphis as his top 2. Unless, of course, you know, Helinski's going to be there with him for a couple of days. Maybe he can get him to move up the process. But it sounds like Mullins wants to wait and check things out again with his family. Oregon State had a threat going in the top of the first. They had, was it first and second or second and third?
First and second with 2 out.
Could not score. So now we're in the bottom of the first with 2 men away and nobody on base for Arkansas. So underway with game 2 of the National Championship Baseball Series in Omaha. If you are, I tell you, if you're in the media and you're, well, on either side, you've got the website to your favorite airline opened up. You've got your flight picked out, and you're just ready to hit the purchase button as soon as the last out is recorded, because I know you want to get the hell out of Omaha as quickly as possible after spending over 2 weeks there.
Arkansas, you know, it would behoove them or any team at this point in time to win it now, because Oregon State is dangerous, and you can't, you know, once the snake is wounded, you better just cut his head off, because if you let this Oregon State team get up and find their sea legs, they can beat 2 straight on you real quick. So,
well, you go to a third game, winner take all, as we know, anything can happen. Fluke play here or there, a bad outing by your starter gets you in an early hole. You're right. If you've got the lead in the series, you'd like to go ahead and close it out as quickly as possible. And Arkansas is certainly capable of doing that with the team that they have, and they do get a 2-out base runner in the bottom of the first inning. All right, we'll be back with more in a moment. More from USC coach Mark Kingston after the break as he talks more about his personnel looking ahead to next year. And we'll hear from the Braves skipper Brian Snitker. Braves take it on the chin today, 6-5 to the Reds. Back in a moment. A lot of good response on Twitter, believe it or not. Some nice stuff, some positive stuff on Twitter about the Ryan Hilinski interview. If you missed it, we'll have it up for you later tonight on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. I mean, Gamecock fans are taking to him like Clemson fans took to Trevor Lawrence, no doubt. And, the pressure will be similar when you're this much hyped and talked about and, you're an Elite 11 quarterback. Maybe you're the best quarterback in your class in the country, top 3, top 5, whatever the case may be. A lot of pressure comes with that. Some guys can handle it and thrive, and some sort of lose their way as a result of it.
Well, I've always, what is this? I like to under-promise and overproduce, like you could say. For every Trevor Lawrence, there's a Connor Shaw. Who would have thought? You looked at this guy, he comes in after Garcia, looks a little bit short for quarterback, and he's going to be your winningest quarterback in the school's history. Nobody would figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
But now a guy walks in, there's the second coming right there. He's gonna do it all for us. And boy, it's almost hard to, even if you're good, to keep up with those expectations.
My new goal in life here on Sports Talk now is to please one listener. We have a Twitter nut follower by the name of Lawrence. And if we utter one word about anything other than South Carolina, we are labeled as a terrible show. So I'm just happy to see a tweet here from Lawrence saying it was a very good show last night. Keep up the good work. I might dare again tonight. So if we can just on a nightly basis live up to old Lawrence's standards, I think we might have a chance to be around for a little while. That's my goal. If I can just make old Lawrence happy here in the Twitter sewer, then I'll be pleased with that. So with that in mind, let's let him hear from his baseball coach a little bit more, Mark Kingston, who met with the media earlier today. You heard in part one him kind of giving an overview of his first year at South Carolina, talking about some of the personnel decisions that have been made and will be made. Here is more from his presser earlier today. Sounds like we're having a computer revolt. Give me a gun. I can put that computer out of its misery in a hurry. Let me know when she's ready to fly there, Brian. We're ready? Let's try it again. Mark Kingston.
Coach, when you talk about personnel and flexibility, just curious what your vision is preference-wise for Noah and Jake as far as, who fits where, infield versus outfield and so forth.
Yeah, really good question. I mean, those two guys will almost work off each other. They'll both be looked at in the infield and the outfield next year. They may get heavy infield work all fall just to get a feel for how they're developing. And it may be a case of, one guy may play in the infield and one guy may play in the outfield. And it'll be an open competition. And, I think both of them have the ability to play in the infield and both can be very good outfielders as well. So that gives us some flexibility. And now it's just a matter of how do those pieces best fit together.
Mark, what's Chris Cullen next year? Does he remain a catcher or is he a first baseman, or what's your plan for him?
Yeah, the plan for him is once again, a lot of where Chris will play, because he is flexible position-wise, will have to do with the pieces around him. Who's playing first? Who's playing third? How are the catchers doing that we brought in? The great thing about him is he's able and he's willing to play any of those three spots. So you could see him at third, first, or behind the plate. And, the big thing with Chris is, Chris didn't have the year this year that he wanted, but our message to him is that he can still have a great senior year. I think Madison Stokes is a great example for him, and really Hunter Taylor is too. Guys that had subpar junior years were disappointed, but used it as motivation, made some adjustments, and had tremendous senior years and were drafted. So to me, that's what we want to happen with Chris, and I think he's going to work really hard to try to make that happen.
The first year here at South Carolina, everything you expected it to be as the head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I would love it, and I did. I mean, I love everything about it. I love the fan passion and support. I love, having to answer to the media every day, and you guys I'm serious at holding us accountable for the moves we make. I think that's what the big time's all about. And South Carolina baseball is big time. That's what I thought it would be coming in. And there's no doubt about it. That's what it is. So I love it. I love being here. I'm proud to be here. And myself and our staff will continue to work extremely hard to make this a program that everybody can be proud of.
Mark, I believe LT was the only player who could return that hasn't signed yet. Has he given you any indication about which way he's leaning?
Yeah, he's going to sign. It's just a matter of time. But he will sign. He's worked so hard, and he had such a great impact for us. And I think him moving to shortstop and having a much better offensive year than he ever has was one of our keys this year. So he's prepared. It's been a dream of his since he was a little kid to be a pro baseball player. He helped us get to a super regional. He was one of our key players, and he's going into pro ball with our full support.
And I think you had 6 signees or recruits get drafted. 3 of them have already signed.
Right. It's actually up to 7. It's actually up to 7.
But the other 3, have they given you any indication about what they'll do?
Yeah, 3 have signed so far. And as of today, we will have 4 coming in that will join us next year that were drafted.
Who's All right, Mark Kingston from earlier today. I've got to maybe somebody else knows. Somehow I'm missing one of his signees who was drafted.
Are you counting the 2 JUCOs?
Maybe I'm not. Yeah, that's right. They do have the junior college guy who was drafted. Okay, that must be it. And he's planning to come in. Okay. Thank you, Pro. I know I can always lean on you to help clarify things. I did not have that accounted for on my list. In fact, I think I need to add him to my list. So I'll be up to date on that. So Mark Kingston puts the Rapparoo on his first year. How would you grade him? You look at the regular season, the ups and downs, the comeback from midseason on, and then the run to a final game of a super. How would you grade what they did in their first year?
I'd give him an A. I would, because normally you're going to judge a coach on did he win his team over first year? Because most of the players he didn't bring in. And you throw in the fact that you gave him a pop quiz. Oh, by the way, let's throw in a bunch of injuries to see how you do. And factor in, because of those injuries and experimentation, we're going to let you flounder for a little bit and see if you can come out of the abyss. And you got to put a check mark on all 3. That he's done a pretty good job with what he had and what he had to and what hand he was dealt when he had to deal with a less than full deck. So you got to give that coaching staff an A.
Andrew Eister is the junior college outfielder.
Okay.
Who was also
that was
drafted.
The big bat they were talking about bringing in.
Yeah. Right. He was a guy that was drafted out of high school in like the 20-something round, went 1 year to junior college, had a really good year, but was picked later in the draft. He lost some positions. So he decided not to sign and come to USC in the hopes of winning a national championship and also improving his draft stock. So I'm glad you pointed that out. I would have missed that. I'd have to agree with you. I mean, look, you get a team to the edge of the World Series, 1 win away, you have to be given an A, because that's, well, depending on your grading scale. I guess if you get to Omaha, you get an A+.
Yes.
Getting to within 1 game of Omaha, you get an A. But here's the thing. He inherited a good team.
Yes.
I think back to some of the things I said during the season when they were going poorly, and I kept asking on the show, why is this team not winning? It's got too many good players. And when you went through the lineup, you saw veterans, you saw good players, you saw good pitching staff. Why is it not happening? But they got it together. They finished very strongly, as we've noted, and had a great finish. But he inherited that team. I mean, you look at the lineup, it's almost entirely made up of Holbrook recruits. Now, he and his staff have got to prove, maybe they are proving it, time will tell, but they've got to prove that they can go out and bring in really good players to win high at this level. All right, break is coming up. Braves did not win high today. They got beat by the Reds 6-5. We'll hear from their skipper coming up.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Bottom two in the College World Series, Championship Series Game 2. Perhaps a closeout game for Arkansas, 0-0, as they play in the bottom of the second inning. Other baseball in the majors, Yankees and Phillies are scoreless. Baltimore leads Seattle 2-1. Oakland, Detroit scoreless. Mets and Pirates scoreless. Arizona and Miami scoreless. Red Sox lead the Angels 1-0. Kansas City beat Milwaukee 5-4. Houston over Toronto, final score 7-6. And the Bravos, they lose at home 6-5 to close out a homestand. Now they'll hit the road for 10 games, beginning with a game Friday night in St. Louis, eventually going to play the Yankees and other spots. The Braves have been in first place in the NL East since May 31, lead the league in runs scored. However, the past 7 games, they've lost 5 times. So things are turning on them a little bit, but it's baseball. You're going to have your ups and your downs. Today they had a lead and they blew it. Sean Newcomb on the mound. They gave up 3 runs in the 7th inning. They lose to the Reds 6-5. Here are some comments from manager Brian Snitker on the Braves television network after the ball game, talking about Newcomb's performance and letting the lead get away.
Gutted it up and went, and you're left with the lead. I mean, it's I thought he did a really good job. Wasn't as sharp as I've seen him, but under the circumstances and everything, you need a guy to go out and we needed somebody to go 6 innings, and he did. And he left with the lead, so it's good.
Sam Franklin was so good last year and so reliable. This year he's been quite the opposite. Do you keep hoping that he can work through this
Yeah,
thing?
no, I mean, it's, like everything everybody goes through stretches in this game, and I think the biggest thing with Sam is fastball command. That is, been here and there. I mean, the secondary stuff is overall been okay, and it's not unlike a hitter, a team, anything else. I mean, sometimes guys get in ruts, and we had the 3-inning spurt there in Toronto that I kind of hope maybe that'd get him back, out there throwing his pitches. And he'll be fine. His velocity's good. It's not like he's tired or anything. I mean, his stuff is live. It's just about, getting strikes, I think, with his fastball is the biggest thing.
Was Ozzy's foot still bothering him tonight?
Bothering pretty good. I mean, you got there last night, you get popped, and you keep going because the adrenaline's going, and he told me I'm good, but then you sleep on it. He woke up this morning and was really sore. So we just keep treating him and treat him all day today. We'll get him again in the morning before we leave. And, if he needs a couple days in St. Louis, he does, but, it's something that's day after things are a lot sore than night of.
What about Ender? I know he came out of the game hurt.
Yeah, he felt something in his oblique. It was a kind of a shadow type thing. He just mentioned it. As soon as he mentioned it, I'm not going to take any chances because I don't want you taking a swing. And, I think if he could have played, but it's just one of those things you don't want to take a chance with. And, again, all day today, tomorrow, get treatment, he should be fine.
Drop a couple series at home before hitting the road.
Yeah.
What's the message to the guys as you?
Well, no, it's just you're going to do this. It's going to happen. I mean, they played 3 months of the season. This is really the first kind of grind type thing team-wise that we've been through. And you're going to go through it. Everybody goes through it. We're not going to be immune to it. I mean, the bullpen's taxed. We're getting guys on and, can't have a hard time in the productive out situation. It's going to happen. I mean, we ducked it for 3 months. It's been really good. This may have eluded us a couple of days at a time, but you're going to have to fight your way through this kind of thing. And we're no different than any other club, and we'll be fine. I mean, we'll take a couple of days off and come back out and grinding again on Friday.
Is the day off any kind of quick fix to any of the?
Oh, it's a quick fix. It's a good. It comes at a good time. I mean, it was. We come roaring back in this game today. I mean, it was just looked like one we were gonna kind of laying dead in the weeds for a while, and then kind of got life and thought it was really going to be, but that happens too. And it'll be good to have the evening and the day off and kind of regroup, and it's a tough road trip. It's probably as tough a road trip as we've had all year coming up, 10 days.
Your pen was past this series or this homestand, but did these last few days or maybe even weeks, create any more concern about that aspect of your roster?
Well, I don't know, concern. I wouldn't say concern. I mean, I'm just, anytime things kind of get out haywire and you're extending guys beyond what they're probably accustomed to, that's a concern more than the personnel. I mean, I think we could get back to the starters covering innings, doing what they have been doing all year, and they're going through a little rut too. We've had the 5-inning stints, Nuke stretched it to 6. That's going to happen. I mean, you're going to go through this with the bullpen. We got the right people down there. I'm not concerned about the individuals. It's more the workload or whatever than anything.
Teams have to make adjustments to that pen.
Yeah.
You feel like you have the pieces.
Yeah,
within this.
I think so. I mean, I think we have the pieces there. It's just kind of get back on a little. It's been, like I say, for 3 months we've had a good little rotation and thing going, and it got out of whack with the games that we had to play and the extra innings and things like that, and that's going to happen. Again, we're the pen, the starting pitching is no different than grinding through at bats and the offense when they have their lulls, and we're getting guys on. We're having a hard time getting a big hit right now. That happens. It happens to every ball club out there. And even the good ones, the ones that win a whole lot of games, go through stretches like that. We won a whole lot of games, and we've been very fortunate for the last 3 months since the season started. This is really our first time to experience this. And the guys, they'll just keep playing. They did today, as you saw. They came back and got right back into this ball game against a guy that was strapping us and had 2 out, nobody on. Next thing you know, we're winning the game. So that's they're not going to quit. They're not going to stop fighting, and it'll be okay.
Okay, Brian Snitker from today after the loss. So some numbers on the Braves. Sam Freeman came in and gave up the lead, and he allowed 2 hits, 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. He falls to 1-3. His ERA 8.16 in his past 15 appearances. The Braves bullpen blew 3 leads on the homestand, had a 5.46 ERA in 29 and 2/3 innings, as they missed an opportunity against Baltimore, the American League's worst team, and Cincinnati, the National League's 3rd worst team. First time this season the Braves have lost consecutive home series. Coming up, a 10-game road trip, St. Louis, the Yankees, and Milwaukee. And they've got some injury issues to be concerned about. Braves are 2 for 20 with runners in scoring position the past 2 games. Things have been great all season long. They've been the Cinderella team in baseball, I think you'd have to say, to this point. Are they just hitting a little bit of a lull, or are we seeing some things kind of coming to fruition as to what was expected of this team?
No, it's health. You start off with their phenom Acuna, who's been out. But the big thing right now is their closer is out. Arodys Vizcaíno. I think he was put on the 10-day DL. I think he's eligible to come off this weekend sometime. But they truly miss him. And of course, their Canadian hurling phenom, Mr. Soroka, is on the 60-day DL. He's got an arm problem.
And Ozzy Albies is out.
Yeah.
He was out today. Not sure if he'll be ready for Friday. And Ender Inciarte left the game today in the 8th inning with a sore oblique. They think he'll be ready for Friday.
It'll be it. Well, that's their center fielder. He's great defensively and usually at the leadoff spot. So that definitely will hurt them if he's out.
All right, still scoreless in the CWS game tonight between Arkansas and Oregon State. So hopefully we'll have a nice dramatic game there to see if Arkansas can claim another SEC championship. Pro, thank you very much. Brian, great job as always. Thank you. We thank all of you for joining us tonight via the airwaves or on our Periscope or on YouTube. Be sure to crank us up tomorrow night at 6:06. We'll see you then. Have a great night.